I'd like to go ahead and call this April 18th meeting of the Salina City Commission to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Peck.
Here.
Commissioner Angel.
Here.
Commissioner Jennings.
Here.
Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Veneer.
Would you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting up for the Citizens Open Forum. If there's anyone here today who has anything that's on their mind they'd like to come up and discuss, as long as it's not on today's agenda, please feel free to do so. You just come up and state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Wilson, 422 Jupiter Avenue. My comments pertain to the City Commissioner's vote on the River Improvement Project of last Monday. Since that issue was not on the agenda, it was proper for the Friends of the River to speak during the public forum. However, since the public had not been previously informed, the mayor should not have permitted a vote. It would have been better to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. When dealing with people, perception is sometimes more important than reality. An example of this was the discussion concerning the demolition of the former Hawthorne School building. What are citizens to think when city commissioners vote on an important issue like the river project without announcing it ahead of time, and thus not giving all persons an opportunity to prepare comments? Also, several days before the commissioners' actions, voters indicated their preferences for 3 new city leaders. The vote at last Monday's meeting was taken by some lame duck commissioners. Some citizens may wonder why the vote was not delayed until the new commissioners had been seated. I have been a member of the Salina County Planning and Zoning Commission for more than 7 years, and also I've completed 2 3-year terms as a member of the City of Salina Board of Zoning Appeals. In both of these bodies, relevant citizens are always informed before an important vote is taken. The intentions of the city commissioners at the April 11th meeting may have been good, but the perception by numerous citizens is not favorable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your comments and quick response to your question or your comments. Commissioner Jennings had advocated for waiting a week, and while I saw the logic in doing so, I, for one, advocated going ahead and taking care of the issue, and I can assure you the last 3 weeks have felt anything but lame duck sessions. I felt like this commission was very equipped to handle that decision, and certainly we still operated as a commission and went ahead and took care of that vote. But thank you, and I'm not sure if perception would have changed even if we had waited a week and the vote turned out the same. But again, thanks for your comments. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of April 11, 2011. Item 6.2, award a contract for the metal roofs waterproof coating for the general services and building maintenance buildings, project number 112858 to Yotzi Roofing Company in the amount of $13,646. Item 6.3, award of contract for the Smoky Hill Museum exterior stone masonry wall repairs, project number 112860 to Mid-Continental Restoration Company in the amount of $57,064. Item 6.4, authorize the purchase of a chlorine scrubber pump at the water treatment plant from R&E Merrill and Associates Incorporated in the amount of $9,869. Item 6.5, resolution number 116818, authorizing a renewal agreement for workers' compensation third-party administrative services with CCMSI Incorporated. Item 6.6, Resolution Number 116819, authorizing the city manager to instruct binding of coverage of excess workers' compensation insurance with Midwest Employers Casualty Company.
Is there any item a commissioner has a question on pertaining to the consent agenda? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to administration.
Item 8.1, second reading ordinance number 10,597, levying special assessments against certain lots and pieces of property to pay the cost of repair of sidewalks.
Ordinance number 11-10597 was passed on first reading on April 11th. Since that time, no comments have been received. Is there any public comment today? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve on second reading ordinance number 11-10597, leveling special assessments against certain lots and pieces of property to pay for the cost of repair of sidewalks.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance number 11-10597. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Angel?
Aye.
Commissioner Jennings?
Aye.
Commissioner Larson?
Aye.
Mayor Peck?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.2, second reading ordinance number 11-10,598, levying special assessments against certain pieces of property to pay the cost of abatement of nuisances.
Ordinance number 11-10598 was passed on first reading on April 11th, and since that time, no comments have been received. The total amount to be certified has been reduced by $342.65 due to payments received. Is there any public comment today? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 11-10598 on second reading, levying special assessments against certain lots and pieces of property to pay the cost of abatement of nuisances.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance number 11-10598 on second reading. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Angel?
Aye.
Commissioner Jennings?
Aye.
Commissioner Larson?
Aye.
Mayor Peck?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.3, authorize the award of community development block grant recovery contracts.
Mr. Hobby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners, today you have before you the two final remaining bid documents for the Community Development Block Grant Recovery Funds. So we would ask that you would offer that contract to the two lowest bidders. You'll notice that you had one bidder in the packet who did not elect to become a licensed contractor within the city of Salina, so therefore we'd like for you to move to the second highest bidders or the second bidders and award the bids to Kansas Sand for a project at 602 Martin in the amount of $20,845, and the second bid to Ponton Construction Rehabilitation Project on Marquette Allen at 723 Cherokee Drive in an amount of $17,544. This would finalize the community development block grant for the year, allow us to get two projects completed, bringing the total number of projects up to 20. And originally, we'd anticipated doing 16 projects, but through the weatherization plan and funds from the North Central Kansas Planning and Development, we've been able to do 20 homes in the project now with these two. So very pleased we've been able to do 4 more homes than we'd anticipated in the very beginning. So we'd ask for your approval to award these last two contracts, one to Kansas Sand and one to Ponton Construction.
Great. Is there questions of staff? Thanks. Is there any public comment? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mayor, I move that we decline the bids from M&R Buildings for 2 CDBGR housing rehabilitation projects due to lack of contractor licensing, and approve the award of contracts to Kansas Sand for the rehabilitation project bid award at 802 Martin in the amount of $20,845, and the Ponton's Construction Rehabilitation Project bid award for the home at 723 Cherokee Drive in the amount of $17,544 as described in the bid tabulation sheets.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we decline the bids from M&R Buildings and accept the second lowest bids from Kansas Sand and Ponton's Construction for the final phase of the CDBG-R Housing Rehabilitation Program. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.4, 2010 Special Assessment Projects. Sub-item 8.4A, certification of final cost for the 2010 Special Assessment Projects and set May 9, 2011 as the date of public hearing. Sub-item 8.4B, first reading ordinance number 11, 10,599.
Mr. Stack.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The final costs have been calculated for the Burkamp subdivision and the Grand Prairie subdivision. Get my notes. I left them on my chair here. And let's see, we have to set the public hearing date, set the assessment hearing for the first reading of the assessment ordinance. So since the projects have been completed and the final costs have been calculated, this process starts the sale of bonds and the levying of the special assessments. So I'll stand for questions.
Questions of staff? Thank you. Is there any public comment? Greg, are we going to need two separate motions here?
That would be best.
Okay. Thank you. Accept a motion.
Mayor, I move that we certify the final costs for the 2010 special assessment projects, and we set the date of May 9th, 2011 as the public hearing date.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we certify the final cost for the 2010 special assessment projects and set May 9th as a date for the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0.
Mayor, I move that we approve on first reading ordinance number 11-10599.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance number 11-10599 on first reading. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.5, first reading ordinance number 11, 10,600, amending resolution number 106723 relating to the benefit district for public improvements in the Riffle Addition number 2.
Mr. Stack.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Again, this is a similar motion or similar project to, or similar process to the last two that were completed. However, Riffle Addition number 2 was a developer costs were exceeded, so they were to levy special assessments beyond the cost of the original ordinance. They decided to they were okay with that. They signed a petition to increase the actual special assessments to cover the cost of the whole project. Mr. Riffle and Mr. Weiler both signed an amended petition and waiver of assessment proceedings requesting that the additional expenses be added to the special assessment rules. They've looked at the costs. They were basically in charge of the project. They were okay with the costs, so we recommend that the City Commission approve this ordinance, which amends the resolution, and then we'll also waive the assessment proceedings because they're already okay with the costs. I'll stand for questions on this one as well.
Questions, Mr. Stack?
So since they've agreed that the costs are correct, we don't have to have the hearing date since
That's the way I understand it. Is that correct? Luann talked with...
Actually, the petitioners represent 100% of the property owners, and it was initiated by them, and they've waived the need for a hearing.
Right.
Thanks.
We talked with bond counsel about that last week, and so that's why it had to be a separate ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there any public comment? Okay, if not, I'll accept a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 11-10600 on first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we adopt ordinance number 11-10600 on first reading. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.6, acceptance of a Kansas Department of Transportation Federal Aid Highway Safety Improvement Program funding to realign travel lanes at the Cloud and 9th Street intersection.
One more time.
Back. Okay. City staff has looked at the Cloud and 9th Street intersection for quite a few years, dating back many years, just trying to improve that intersection or keep it functioning. And it's a tight fit and challenging intersection for sure. 2003, there was an original submittal to KDOT regarding this same funding program with a similar number of accidents. So every so many years they ask for, do you have other intersections in town that have accidents that could be eliminated with some modifications to the intersection? So we looked at this one again, and it looked like the realignment of some of the lanes would possibly help, and it had not been funded before. So Kent Johnson, one of our staff engineers, looked at it, looked at the cost to try and make it a cost to benefit ratio that might work, and it actually did. So we were able to get some federal funding for $215,000. Now, that doesn't fix a lot of things there, but it does fix it. There is the chance to look at it further now. We feel like accepting this funding allows us to do some surveying and start really spending some time here, because we have a possible project to look at right away, to look at options and bring them back to the commission at a later date at a study session of some sort to look at, does $215,000 get us what we really need, or do we need more, or is it something that we don't feel like we can tackle? So it's at this time, this doesn't obligate us to any agreements. We're not signing anything. We're just giving them a preliminary, okay, this is something we're going to look at further, and put us in there on their, basically accept the funding at this time. So before we actually get an agreement with them and go through a lot more work, we'll come back to you with some options and see if we can find something to do there that'll benefit that intersection. So I'll stand for questions.
Questions?
This intersection is the only one that qualifies for this funding?
It's not, but we have in the past fixed quite a few. Broadway Hegeman as an example.
Right.
Broadway 9th. I can't remember the other ones along Broadway. But
so I'm sure you have a list of
we have others
of where we need to kind of troubleshoot, and so this is kind of high on the radar.
Yeah, this was the highest one on the radar when we looked at them, but the actually has an actual solution. Some of them are, they're already a 4-lane, or there's not much you can do. They just have a lot of accidents. They're, Crawford in Ohio, for example, or Broadway and Crawford are both intersections that have high accident ratings, but there's not something that looks that they could actually improve that. So this is one where it's capacity issues. There's lane offsets here that look like if we could get something done here, we actually might be able to improve something here in this location. But to answer your question, we haven't looked at every intersection in town. We need to probably do that. But this is one that's been on the radar for a while.
So if another one has creeps up and it's more doable, you have the capability of 9th Street. Is this in concrete, or you're saying that?
Oh, this location is the one that we submitted for federal funding. But every so many years they ask for different. So if we find a different one and there's one that of, or that we look at, or becomes an issue, this was just one that has been looked at before and
that's
submitted on.
That's a trouble spot. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Further questions? Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment?
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor.
Good afternoon.
Merlin Stevens, 340 Maple. If I recall properly, when we took out the crosswalk at Hagman and Broadway, this was second on the agenda to get fixed. when that was taken care of. In the meantime, the money was for Hagman and Broadway. You took care of that, supposedly, but you didn't. There's no crosswalk. You put a light in 400 feet, 500 feet for us to walk and get across, and people still go across there and go down Broadway, which we thought at the time that Joe Kronberger's over there was going to be dealing with it, and probably stoplights would go in there. That did not materialize because USD 305 got that. You put the traffic back up on Cloud again, and we narrowed that down and tried to get turning signals in there, and we got a bottleneck at 9th and Cloud. That backs up on the north side of Cloud all the way past Claflin, way up there, same as Crawford and 9th Street. At one time, I think back many years ago, 9th Street was supposed to be a 4-lane highway, one of the arteries. It has not come to pass because environmental, too many trees to be taken out and everything. But I think when we move another turning lane back in there, we're going to have more bottle work on the way up. You are pretty close to 3 or 4 lane on the south side, aren't you, Dan? At Cloud and Broadway going south on that project. Then you're bottling it back up in, just like you did over here on Broadway coming into the bridge. You've got 3-lane highway up there, you're bottling it back down to 4. This is what you're doing here, and it's not going to work if we get more traffic down there, which we are at Cloud and everything there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. You certainly kept a close eye on that stretch of street for us. Appreciate your comments today.
Commissioner, just a quick note on that, too. I think at the time, if I recall, the engineering folks wanted to determine the pattern of the student pedestrians that go to school. And I don't know, Dan can probably speak to that, but I think that was what was, in essence, promised there. When you have a street like that, you really don't like to have a mid-block crosswalk if you can avoid it. And a lot of it depends on the volume of pedestrians to warrant it. First of all, it's a fairly expensive endeavor. It stops traffic on a busy street. And even with a light, it's not always 100% safe. And so you always want to make sure that you really need that. And I don't know, Dan, if you recall what the pedestrian patterns suggested there. Okay. But if you're interested in that, we could get you some information, pull that out of the file. Be happy to do that.
Thank you. Other business.
Like a motion on this.
Yeah, we are. Getting ahead of myself. Is there any further public comment? Okay, if not, I'll accept a motion.
Mayor, I move that we accept the Kansas Department of Transportation Federal Aid Highway Safety Improvement Program funding to realign travel lanes at the Cloud Street and 9th Street intersection, City Project 11-2872.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the KDOT federal aid funding to realign travel lanes at the Cloud Street and 9th Street intersection, City Project number 11-2872. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Now we'll move on to other business.
Item 9.1, comments from outgoing City Commissioner Larson.
Before you start, you've got 25 minutes.
If this were a musical, this is where I'd break out into song and stand up on here and dance and grab those 2 good-looking young men there in the front row and have them do a jig with me.
It's frightening, isn't it?
But it's not a musical. It's a reality show. So what do they do on reality shows? Wow, it's been 4 years, and I just can't believe it. I remember being out there 4 years ago on today's date and thinking, what have I done? I'm sure you guys are all going, what have we done? No, and I'll keep this short and sweet. I don't want to upstage the mayor and the incoming mayor. So, first of all, until you have sat up here, you just have no idea what is behind the scenes and makes your city run. Lots of people to thank, and I'd be here till 6 o'clock thanking everybody. But the people that we interact with the most, and the people that I felt, I still have your cell numbers, and I still know your office extension numbers, so unless you change them, I hope it's okay if I have to call you now and then, because I think the commissioners probably won't be answering my phone calls, so I may call you. Jason and Mike, manager and deputy city manager, thank you very, very much for putting up with me and answering my questions. As a matter of fact, a quick, cute story that I will tell. My daughter got married in October, and one of the days that I was off during the week, and we were running some errands, and I had to run up to the country club, which is where the reception was going to be. And as I'm coming up Crawford and ready to turn on Marymount, the street was closed. There were barricades up, and there were detour signs. And I freaked out because I thought, oh my gosh, all these people are coming from out of town. And you know, when you go past a block and you turn on was it Fairdale? There aren't square blocks. And I didn't know if people were going to know where to turn to get back on Marymount, to head back up to the country club. And I'm like, oh, this is just going to be a disaster. So my daughter, the bride, was in the car with me, and I whip out my cell phone. I pulled off to the side, Chief Hill, to make a call safely. So I pull out my cell phone, and I'm calling Mike. You know, I hated to bother Jason with little things like this, so I always called Mike. So I call Mike, and I'm in a panic, and I'm like, do you realize my daughter gets married tomorrow, and they've got this road blocked? How are you going to come out here and stand in direct traffic? Because I surely can't. And so Mike says, well, off the top of my head, I don't know what's going on, but let me make some phone calls, and I'll get right back to you. Hung up, got safely back on the road, and my daughter goes, I cannot believe you just did that, Mom. And I said, hey. So 10 minutes later, my cell phone rings, and it was Mike. He says, we're just doing some minor maintenance there. He said they have assured me that is just temporary. They plan on being done tonight at 5 o'clock. All the barricades will be gone, and because they realized that the weekend was coming up and they needed to open the roads for everyone, just not Lucy's daughter's wedding. And sure enough, the next day when we drove up there, everything was cleared off. There was no barricades, and I'm like, life is good. But anyway, Jason, Mike, thank you. Greg, thank you for answering questions when I called or emailed you, and never did have to ask you what time it was, so I appreciate that you kept a lot of answers to yes and no. Dealt with a lot of department heads, and I feel like I just need to say kudos to them, especially to those that we dealt with a lot. Dean Andrew has got to be one of the smartest men I know, and at any given time you can ask him anything about a street or a planning or a platting or a zoning or annexing, and I swear he's got all that stuff in his head, and how he could get it so accurately is just above me. Martha Tasker is another one. She's one of the smartest ladies I know, and good luck with the endeavors that you've got ahead of you for the city of Salina. You're in a great position. Dan Stack, which today was the Dan Stack Show. So thank you, Dan, for answering all our questions. Of course, Chief Hill and Chief Mulligan. And then there's Rod, the money guy, who I always would have to read him. If he ever, commissioners coming in, if he ever comes to work wearing the money tie, that's a good sign, okay? When he's not wearing the money sign, you need to worry. Mike and Gary, thank you for being here every Monday, whether you had a report or not. I mean, that was just, you were here to answer those questions. Holly, who had to step in after LaDonna. LaDonna helped me the year that I was mayor, and she kept me on task, and I was always calling her too because I wasn't sure where I had to be at what time. And then Holly stepped in, and I think she's done a great job, and I never felt like I was taking up too much of her time. So between Holly and Mike, thank you, because I called you guys a lot. Of course, Luann, I always had a lot of questions for her, too, and appreciate your answers, the citizens. I think I'm going to miss that the most, getting stopped at the grocery store and the parking lots. I'm glad that you were courteous of my time. I appreciated that you cared, and enough about Salina that you stopped to ask me questions. I felt that I was approachable, and I really think this commission was, and the incoming, I think, is going to be very approachable, and you voted for them, so you should be able to call them and bug them at any time, right, Samantha and Norm and incoming commissioners. A big shout out to my office. If it wouldn't be for them, I couldn't come here and work for you, the citizens. So to Janelle and Sarah, they're still there at work because I'm here. And I told them today when I left, this is my last Monday that I will leave you guys hanging dry, so out to dry. But I'm back to work, so my Mondays are back. Of course, my dad, my biggest fan, and he would have coffee every Wednesday with his friends. And after coffee, he comes to my office, and he'd ask me everything that they were discussing because they'd always look at him like he was going to have the answers. And he'd look at him and he'd say, I have no idea, but next week at this time, I'll have the answers. And he didn't, but it was a good answer. To my sister and my brother and their family, I know that a lot of times that people would get to them, too, about what was your sister thinking, and they just put up with it. My daughter Amanda and my daughter Angie, I hope now my daughter Angie will run errands with me in town. She's the one that never wanted to go with me anywhere. And we'd be in the parking lot of the mall or the grocery store or Target, and she'd say, Mom, just keep your head down. Don't make eye contact with anybody. In and out. In and out. I got to be at the Y in 30 minutes. So I hope now she'll run errands with me because people will forget who I was. And, of course, my biggest supporter and the person that I couldn't have done what I did if it wasn't for him, my husband, David. I think he's having more withdrawal than I am because he loved knowing what was going on in town. We'd be driving by, and he'd say, hey, what are those flags up there for? And I'd say, oh, I think that's something that's coming up. And so we'd visit a little bit about it. Or I'd say, I can't tell you. It's privy information. And he'd look at me like, what? Just me. I say, you talk too much. No, I'm kidding, honey. I'm the quiet one, and I'm the quiet one. No, I'm sorry. That's it. I just want to thank everybody of the biggest accomplishments. I know the mayor's going to say a little bit about this, but in the 4 years, and those go by really, really fast. Of the 4 years we were here, this is probably the third largest audience. No, I'm kidding. North Ohio Expressway, or the overpass, I think is a big thing that I was glad to be part of my reign here. The Aquatic Center, of course, to this day, my little nephews and niece, they think that I built that. We'll let them think that. And, of course, the Parks Agreement. I think it's just time to move forward, and I'm glad we were able to come to an agreement on that. And with that, I will say thank you, and I wish the new commission luck, and the new mayor, or the incoming mayor and vice mayor. And I will be watching you on TV, and I do know where you live and your phone number. So thank you.
These were the notes she had. It's incredible. Well, I don't have a whole lot left to say, but I would also like to take the time right now to thank Jason Gage and Mike Scragg, Greg Bingston, Luann Elsey, and Holly McCain for these are people I worked most closely with on a weekly basis, and they just absolutely do an incredible job. And they have a high amount of integrity and a wonderful work ethic that I haven't seen in any other organization that I've been affiliated with, and it's been a joy to work with all of you. So I'd also like to thank the rest of the executive staff here, Dean Andrew, Martha Tasker, Rod Franz, Mike Frazier, Dan Stack, Chief Mullick and Chief Hill, Jack Rolfe, Steve Schneider, Gina McDonald, Natalie Fisher. Whether I worked with you that closely or whether you came up and spoke very often or not, many of you were present for questions and attended our meetings regularly, and you've been really incredible to work with, and I've enjoyed each and every one of you. I'd also like to take the time to thank the commissioners that I've had a pleasure to work with: Alan Joka, John Veneer, Abner Perney, Lucy Larson, Samantha Angel, Norm Jennings, and Tom Arpke. Each one of these commissioners in the 4 years I've been affiliated with the commission has brought a really unique perspective, and each one of them had a specialty that helped me grow personally and enabled this commission to really come together and do well, I think. We didn't always agree, but it was a pleasure to work with each one of these commissioners, and whether we agreed or not, we cooperated and had that spirit of cooperation that I think served the community well. And going forward, I trust that the future commission will have that as well, and I know that'll be the case. I'd also like to take the time to thank my wife Michelle, and my kids Adi and Noah, who've been a tremendous amount of support for me. My mom and dad, who've also been a tremendous amount of support and have watched the kids when Michelle and I have been busy on Monday nights, and my extended family as well. My aunt's here tonight with us, and just have a really strong support group for my entire family, and that's a tremendous thing to have in this position. And my mom's probably the only person that never disagreed, at least to my face, with a decision I made. Briefly, 4 years ago, I was 29 years old. I had a 1-year-old daughter, and my wife was 6 months or so pregnant with our boy. And it didn't dawn on me that was an odd time to run for city commission, but looking back, it probably was. At the same time, knowing that my children were coming gave me a little bit of perspective and helped me think about the sense of community I had developed growing up in Salina. And I know times change and culture changes, and my kids are going to grow up in a completely different environment than I did here in town. But I wanted to be able to affect some change here in the community and make it a better place for them to grow up in, and hopefully a place that's on a path to make them want to stay here someday. I kind of approached my time on the commission, if I can use an analogy from my old Boy Scout days. I remember on scouting trips, we always tried to leave the campground better than when we found it. So we'd literally line up in a row together and walk over the campsite and make sure we picked up any trash, or just did little things to make sure that our campground was better off than when we found it. And I hope that Salina is at least as good, if not better, than when I came on the commission 4 years ago. And I believe I've had a cast of commissioners over the last 4 years that have worked well, and I think it is better off. I know the new commissioners coming on share a love of Salina. Some of them are lifelong residents, and I know a couple of them already have big ideas of some things that they'd like to get accomplished, and I like that. And leaving obviously is bittersweet, but I'm really excited to have a fresh approach and fresh ideas in here, and I think that turnover is going to be healthy, and I wish them the best of luck. I know you guys will have great experience with Norm and Samantha. They do an absolutely fabulous job, very analytical thinkers that bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience to the commission, and I wish you guys the best, and I thank the community for having me.
Will Kay Crawford, Aaron Householder, and Barb Shirley please come forward?
us in the front. I'll let you come on this side. My hairline's better. I don't know if I want to be between them both. You guys go ahead. Don't put you in the middle.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I'll support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of City Commissioner
of the office of City Commissioner
in and for the City of Salina, Kansas.
in and for the City of Salina, Kansas.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Now we go back there.
Yeah.
I will now call the organizational meeting of April 18, 2011 to order and call roll. Commissioner Angel?
Here.
Commissioner Crawford?
Here.
Commissioner Householder?
Here.
Commissioner Jennings?
Here.
Commissioner Shirley?
Here.
I will now accept nominations for mayor and chair of the Board of Commissioners.
I would like to offer Samantha Angel as a nomination for mayor and chairman of the Board of Commissioners.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I will now accept nominations for acting mayor and vice chair of the Board of Commissioners.
Madam Clerk, I would nominate Commissioner Norm Jennings as acting mayor and vice chairman of the Board of Commissioners.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Yes.
Don't worry, I'm not giving this microphone back to Lucy. We do have a surprise visitor sitting in the back. If Representative Tarmarkey would come up, we have a plaque for him. I know he wasn't on the agenda as being here, but I talked to him earlier and asked if he could stop by. So, Tom, in recognition of the service, of your service as City Commissioner, we want to give you this plaque and give you a chance to talk since you didn't get to come up and say anything.
I'm surprised. I wasn't expecting this. I do want to thank the city commissioners that I worked with. It was an amazing group, and Aaron was correct. We didn't always agree, but we always decided what was best for the city of Salina. So I want to thank all of you for cooperating and making good decisions for the total citizenship. And Jason and Michael and Gary and everyone, thank you very much for supporting me when I was on the city commission, and hopefully I can continue to serve you as in the House. So thank you very much.
Lucy, I have one for you too in recognition of your service on the commission. April 16th, 2007 to April 18th, 2011. No, I'm not giving it back. Aaron, you get two. One for your service as commissioner, that's a small one. And then I'll hand you for service as mayor and your gavel. Thanks. I do want to say thank you to all three of you, also from Norm and I, and on behalf of all of the staff, for your leadership and for your insight, and probably most of all for your humor. It was a pleasure serving with all of you, and I really appreciate that even when we sat here and we may not have agreed on issues, no one made personal attacks, no one took any votes personally. We were able to come out and debate ideas and talk about issues and then come back the next week as friends, so I really appreciate it. Thanks.
New mayor comments.
Right, so I've been thinking about what I'm going to say tonight, and everyone's been trying to tell me this is a big deal, so I thought I probably should have prepared something, and I didn't. I know there's kind of three things I wanted to talk about. The first is kind of an anticipatory thank you to my husband and my kids and my mom and her husband, and my law partner, Connie Ochterberg, and then I think Sandy and Sue are sitting back there somewhere. Me sitting up here is completely a group effort, so I thought I better acknowledge and thank all of the members of the group. I know that there'll be times when I'm not home, and you may have to pick up the kids, or you may have to pick up the kids, and I appreciate it. There may be an awful lot of Mondays and a lot of middle of the office days where I'm taking off, so I really appreciate your patience and your efforts in allowing me to sit up here. In thinking about kind of a theme for the next year, what came to me was let's get back to basics. We've done some huge projects in my first 2 years on the commission, and I thought let's get back to basics and really focus on what I think are probably the basic tenets of local city government, infrastructure, public safety, and economic development. I think if we can focus just on those three basic ideas, we're going to have a great year. Obviously, there's two kind of problem children that I think everyone knows about that we need to continue to aggressively pursue. We do have the lawsuit on file in federal court regarding the pollution out west, southwest of town, and of course the recertification of the levee. I think we need to obviously keep those two problem issues at the front of our minds, in front of our thinking, even though I know we've been aggressively trying to get those resolved and we are dealing with federal agencies, which kind of makes things a little more difficult. But any chance we get to move those problems or resolve those issues, I think we need to take that opportunity. And finally, to kind of touch on what Aaron was saying in his comments, I don't think it's a news flash that not every decision we make up here is groundbreaking or earth-shattering. But it's so clear to me that the people that served before us and all the folks that came before us were very thoughtful, very mindful of leaving Salina a better place for all of us to enjoy. We have a sewer system, road system, wonderful parks, an amazing school system, and all of those folks did that for us. You know, there were things that came before prior commissions that those folks voted to move forward knowing they would never see that project come to fruition. They voted to move those projects forward so that we could reap the benefits of it. And I hope that this commission can keep that big picture in mind as well. And whenever we're discussing issues or voting on issues, keep in mind that our ultimate goal should be to make Salina a better place for future generations to live, work, and play. And with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.